Welcome back for the second part of this Zorki 3 CLA series. Now before I move on to the next steps of the CLA, I would like to talk about curtain bounce. So from the last time I took some bits off the camera, rangefinder assembly, long speeds escapement, in order to get this light baffle off, obviously body shell of the front plate, light shields, and what else? That's pretty much it. The rangefinder assembly, just as a short side note, is sort of a combination between the one on the Zorki 4 and the one on the Zorki 1, meaning that you have one assembly here that connects to the rangefinder arm just like in the Zorki 1. Okay, now what I noticed after taking it apart to this stage was the fact that I have, or better said, the camera has a second curtain bounce back, and that means that when you fire the shutter, the second curtain will move all the way to closed position and then bounce back. And when it does that, you get a very thin strip of light on this edge of the film gate, which translates in a final picture as an overexposed strip on the right side of the frame, because obviously the image is reversed. So you can have first curtain bounce, second curtain bounce, or in some cases probably both. When you have first curtain bounce, the first curtain moves all the way to the left and then bounces back, and that's why many cameras have certain brake systems for the curtains. That's one reason. The other reason would be to minimize the camera shake, and this leads to an underexposed strip on the right side of the image or on the left side of the negative, while on the second curtain bounce, the second curtain closes the gap and then reopens it very briefly for a very small gap on this side. Okay, how can you fix it? Well, if this was a Zorki, not a Zorki, a Fed 2, there could have been a slight chance that the issue could be fixed by simply shifting the end position of the curtains via the restricting gear. So basically you kind of shift the timing of the camera. So in Fed 2 you have a restricting gear, that's this one. So it's a gear with a slot on the underside, and the pin locks that gear in position, meaning that it only allows it to rotate from one point to another point, not all the way around. And that means that in the case of the Fed 2 that has like an opening on the bottom that you can actually use to access that gear, take it out, shift it one tooth, put it back, and literally move the end position of the curtains, because you move the way this turns, or the main shaft. In the case of the Zorki 3 and 4, the restricting gear is actually this one, which is part of the entire shaft, and that means that it only has one correct setting. You can't change the setting. It's either good or it's not good at all. And that means that the shutter will always behave like this. It will always, let me put it on B, it will always lead to one, it will always lead to the edges or the margins of the curtains being in the same spot. This is the position of the first curtain, and this is the position of the second curtain. They are offset to this side. So if here you get almost no distance from the edge of the film gate, on this other side you get much bigger distance. This is about 4 millimeters, this is less than 1. My intent, given that the only way I can shift that position is by changing the attachment points for the curtain and the ribbons, so my plan is to actually measure. I did a couple of signs, one sign is here, one sign is there. I will measure this distance and this distance, add them up, and then divide the result by 2, and that way I will know how much I should have on each side for equal spacing. Then I will subtract that result from this measurement. So for instance, if this measurement is 4, let's assume I have 4 millimeters here and 0 here, so the total is 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now if I subtract 2 from 4, I get 2, right? So I would have 2 millimeters here and 2 millimeters here, and subtracting 2 from 4 means that I need to shift the insertion point or the attachment point by 2 millimeters. So if for now, for instance, the curtain is attached, let's say here, I would have to move it 2 millimeters that way. So practically feeding more curtain this way, so the edge of the curtain moves also this way. I don't know if it makes sense, but it's logical, it's easy while, if you visualize what I'm talking about. Alright, so pretty much that's the only way I can improve this, fix this bounce back issue. What else did I want to talk about? I will add a video of the bounce back just so you can see how it looks like on a slow motion. You can spot it while looking through the film gate with the shutter set to some fast speed like 1000 towards a clear sky, for instance, and you will see a strip of light here. If you have access to a CRT TV set, then it's even easier, because you will get one diagonal strip of light. That's typical for this kind of shutter when you're looking to a CRT monitor, and also you will get a very thin but super crisp line of light, vertical line of light here. Okay, and that's about it for the time being. I thought I wanted to say something more. Yeah, probably something about the difference in design of this prong, which is attached to the second curtain. So the difference between this one in Zorki 3 and the one in the Zorki 4. This one seems quite nicer. So it's a better design. Oh yeah, I remembered. So the idea is that this system uses 2 latches. This is the first latch that keeps the second curtain from moving. For instance, when the camera is set on B, you depress the shutter, the first curtain traveler moved, but the second one is locked by this latch. And you can either release the shutter button. That means the latch moves up and that prong is released, or you can push it aside, which is the exact same thing that happens for any other speed, like this, and the second curtain closes. So this is latch number 1. Latch number 2 is this one. This is the latch that is being controlled by the slow speed escapement. Now if I have the shutter cocked. I set the camera to, this is 500, I think. Now if I release the shutter, see, it locks in place, because even though the first ledge has moved aside and has allowed that little prong to start spinning, it is being held in position or stopped from its motion by the second ledge. If I remove my finger, this one moved like that, and the curtain was released. In the case of the Zorki 4, there is a slight motion, rotational motion of the second curtain allowed from the time when it's released by the first ledge to the time it's being stopped by the second ledge. And that motion translates into the edge of the curtain moving from one position like this to a slightly more advanced position like this. So if the position of the second curtain while stopped by the first ledge, so basically the position of the wound shutter, is super close to the edge of the film gate, and you're using slow speeds like half a second, for example, when you release the shutter, that curtain will move slightly into the film frame and wait there for that half a second before it closes the shot. And that's why you, on one hand, you need to have the curtain a certain amount away from the edge of the film gate, so you don't have that intrusion into the frame. And on the other hand, you want the first curtain to be a certain amount of distance inside or away from the film gate, from this edge, so that the second curtain or the first curtain, if it bounces back, won't reopen the frame, because obviously between the first curtain and the second curtain there is a fixed relation of space, of spacing or of distance given by your setting. So if you move one, you in fact move the other. Otherwise, if you only move the first curtain's attachment points, so if you only move the ribbons, you will increase the gap between the curtains, and by doing that you increase your shutter speeds. If on the other hand you only move the attachment of the second curtain, that way you decrease the gap between the curtains, and in fact you will get probably shutter capping at the higher speeds. Alright, so that is why my plan is to actually divide the total amount of distance between edge of film gate and edge of curtains by 2, so I can get even distances on both sides of the film frame, and thus hopefully eliminate all the troubles, all the bugs. The only bug that I'm probably not going to be able to eliminate is this one. See, this tip, as I said on the last video, should have been somewhere here, so it should have pushed this aside somehow, but it stops short, and I can't move it more to that side because the position of this gear is dictated by the actual shaft. On the actual shaft you have this gear, which is the restricting gear, and that means that the position of the shaft in the rest position or in fired position is unique. You can't change it, and that means that this brake pretty much has no effect. The only thing that I can do is to look through my box of dead relatives, Soviet dead relatives, and see if I have a piece like this, so a brake from a Zorki 4 that is just slightly longer, because I'm sure they didn't respect like one size or something, and that would be actually quite interesting to see. I'll have to check. That would be interesting. Otherwise, I would need to somehow improvise and maybe shift this more to that side, but that means cutting new holes or something. I'll see. Anyhow, what I noticed is that this thread is stripped. So unfortunately this screw just moves and moves and moves and moves. And I'll probably have to tap a new thread, a larger thread, and find a larger screw that goes there so it keeps everything steady. This one is not much of a problem, this spring plate, because it's held in position by this one, and it's kind of enough to keep it steady. But this one, it can move around because it's not being pressed correctly on this side. So I'll have to see how I can fix that. All right, that's about it for today. Thank you. Next time I will probably be talking about replacing the shutter curtains again, if maybe I have something of interest to say. If you have any questions, if you have things that you would like for me to talk about, maybe I can explain some things, or maybe you have something to troubleshoot, drop a comment and I will try to answer your queries in my next videos. Thanks, see you next time.